So, just a quick show of hands. Who here has messed with Ionic at all? I'm just curious. Yeah, I like that. That's good. That's good attitude. Okay, who's done anything with Cordova? I'm just going to drill down the layers here. And so, who likes Cordova itself or Ionic? Like, okay, that's good. That's good. I always like to see a show of hands just to know who I'm talking at here. But if you haven't heard Ionic, what we provide is the happy path to hybrid apps. So just a quick intro about myself. That's always the boring part. There's me. I work for Ionic. I'm the tools guy. So anything that you touch to help you do Ionic, that's me. So you can yell at me after. I'll be in the room. If you want to come yell at me or give me praise, I'll take both. Anyways, just moving on. So hybrid apps. What exactly is a hybrid app? It's HTML5, or just HTML that you can write, that acts like a native app. So we're wrapping apps that you write with things you love. You get direct access to stuff on the phone. You can do the camera. You can get their context, their location, all that stuff you'd normally have, with the benefit of doing what you're already doing now, which is probably Angular and web stuff. So instead of building several app platforms, one for iOS, one for Android, you've got one, which is really awesome. So I had a question come up today from the gentleman I was talking to, and they're saying, is this fast enough? Well, it's not 2007 anymore. We don't have these old, slow phones. As a matter of fact, we've got a lot of new stuff. We've got fast phones now. And so the question of, is hybrid apps, are they performant enough? We're finding, yeah, they are. Okay, well, what about web standards? If I plop something on Android and iOS, can they use these features we have? Yes. The answer is yes, they can. So some research things that we found, doing our own little research, is iOS people are always keeping their phones up to date. Most people have iOS, the latest, 6 plus, whatever, and they're always keeping it up to date. As far as Android goes, not so good, right? But there's hope. There's hope there. So it's good. So if you were to start out tomorrow and make your own hybrid app, and you wouldn't use Ionic, what would some problems you'd have? One, getting started, making decisions. What's my app layout going to be like? What are some common conventions our team is going to use? Going down a step further, if you're used to iOS, you know that there's the native screen transitions, Android things are at the top, iOS things are at the bottom. You've got stuff like that. So if you start out today and tomorrow, you'd have to figure all this stuff out for you. Getting a common UI. In Android, it looks one way, and iOS, it looks another way. And navigation, when you click from one, you've got to remember states, things like that. You also have to worry about performance, and then accessing native stuff on the phone. So native things are great. We can all agree. You like using your phone. I know a lot of people probably have your phone right now because I'm probably boring you. I'm sorry. But the cool thing is that you can have all these great things from hybrid apps. So in hybrid app land, in native, you've got all these things that are given to you right off the bat when you start a native app. And when you do a hybrid app in our land, there's not really a web SDK that you can do. You've kind of just go with it, right? You've got to figure things out. So the question becomes, how do you make hybrid apps easier to do? How do you make this process of developing one easier? And that's where we come in. And I had this talk today with some gentlemen, and they were asking me, my core purpose in my life and in my journey with Ionic is to this. I want you guys to focus on your app, not about that annoying stuff that you argue over your coworkers with for hours and hours about what you're going to name your JS files. Let's focus on the real important stuff of the app, right? So things you already know and you love, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. You're already using it, so just keep using it. That's what we're going to provide for you. So we're all here for Angular. That's what we're standing on in Ionic. Ionic is built on top of Angular. So we provide directives for you to do things. We have some nice services, pretty much things that you're already used to. It's really awesome. So the question comes out, how are we going to make it look, how are we going to make things look native and all that? Well, we've got Sass with some sheets set up that you just got to go and change some variables, make it how you want to look, and then boom, you've got your own app that looks the way it looks. And that's awesome. So another great question we had, thanks Stephen, was, does it look the same on iOS or Android? So we've kind of got that one solved for you too. So as you can see real quick, on iOS it looks the iOS way, and on Android it looks the Android way. And all you've got to do is write the app. And we do all this for you. That's awesome. I think that's awesome. Anyways, moving along. So the question is, how do we do this, right? So we kind of stand on the shoulders of giants, as I said. So Bottom layer, there's Cordova, which hopefully you guys have used before and found out it's kind of annoying, so you use Ionic anyway. Moving on, you've got Angular on top of that, and then that's where Ionic sits, where we provide things like that. So moving on, one thing that we've had some people really bark at us for was, you know, I've got this great list of 1,000 elements and it's slow. Now everybody knows it's hybrid. Well, we got that one solved. So I'm going to go over and scroll. This is the actual app here. So benefit of HTML technology is you can put it in the browser again. Like, that's awesome. I can sit here and play with this app that we've built. And so thousands and thousands of elements sitting here scrolling natively, like on the phone without problems. That's a pretty cool thing, I thought. The code, as you can see, is what you're already used to. You know, just a standard attribute. Collect and repeat, see in context, just like an ng repeat. So it's things that you're already used to using, and now it's just even funner on your phone. That's pretty awesome, I thought. So moving on, things like navigation. Another problem that you don't want to solve. You want to make an app. You don't want to think about, how do I do my tabs, and when I click between my tabs, how do I know my app's on that state? Well, we've got that all solved. And you just, ion tabs, just a directive here, boom, and you get this nice little layout here. And even so, you can click through it. You know, it remembers all your states. You get the back button, the little sliding transition. Like, that's pretty awesome, I thought. So if I could just put one thing in Ionic, we're solving problems that you guys shouldn't have to deal with. Again, like, my whole point of why I took the job and why I do it every day I wake up is because I like seeing you guys make cool stuff. Like, that's what makes me really feel alive, is when other people do cool things with what we've built. So moving a step further is cache views. You know, sometimes you want to go back to a view that you were already in your app, and you don't have to worry about where were they scrolled at, or, you know, what picture were they looked on, or anything to do with your, like, the state of that page that you were on it. Like, we handle that with all these cache views, so it's kind of nice. One thing that I always found when I was building Ionic apps, or Cordova apps, before I learned about Ionic, was all these problems I had to figure out every day. It was just really annoying. Things like swipe to go back. You know, like, every user, they're used to it. You know, Instagram, I clicked on my picture, I want to go back. And then they don't do it. What do? Shut your app and delete it and go post 50 comments saying it's horrible, right? Like, people don't like your app, they're quick to say. So it's kind of neat. We implement another feature here for you. We just swipe to go back. Let me make sure it works. Hold on. Wrong screen. Boom. No. There we go. Sweet. Yay. So, just quick show of hands, who's done native app development? I forgot to ask that question. So there's a few that have done it. How much did you enjoy that? I'm just curious. Was it awesome? Was it an awesome experience? Yeah. You got to learn a few things, right? And you've got to, if you're doing web stuff, you've got to, like, recreate. Who's recreated that little iOS button that you tap with the little list item? Like, I think I've done it once or twice. So that's where we throw in components for you. You know, you've got your header buttons here. You've got your items that you can click. You've got your toggle button. All these things that, you know, you might have to go spend the time to do. And it's really nice. So we just, boop, here you go. Have fun. All these native-like things in your web app. That's on a phone. That's kind of weird, right? It's kind of neat. So the question becomes, okay, let's make it look pretty. We got to talk to our designer. No, we don't, because we give you a bunch of icons. And that's pretty sweet. And they're all SVG, or they're all icon-based, so with fonts, so you can size them however you want, color them how you want. That's pretty cool. And then you want to load the app. So now we've got to have something saying my app's loading. What do we do with that? Bunch of spinners for y'all. You want iOS, you want Android? We got it. We got it. And it's really easy to use. You just have a quick little directive saying ion spinner. You know, what color do you want it? Light, green, primary, whatever. Do you want it to be dot type, iOS type, whatever? It's all there. So I show you all these tools, and with any framework you use, like, wow, that's really cool. Yeah, I want to start working it. And then you go on your computer, you start the app, and you're like, oh crap, what do I do? Like, I've had that once or twice, right? So another big benefit we have is we've got great documentation. And I speak, you know, I'm a little biased because I write half of it, but it's kind of funny. You know, when I first started using Ionic, before I took the job, is I was always on the documentation looking at it. So just a quick run through of it. If it doesn't look too bad here. Demo fail. Anyways, take my word for it. Moving along. Okay, so just to dive in, since this is an Angular conference, I want to make sure we at least look and prove that it's Angular and we're not like hiding anything from you. So a basic app looks kind of like this. Let me enlarge for you. Whoa, really large. Is that big enough for y'all? Well, that doesn't help any. Anyway, let me not make it so large. I was trying to get clever with some CSS. I'm not that good at CSS. Like, who isn't, right? But basically, you've got your module here saying I'm a starter type. I've got a platform that I'm going to run. And then I have this ready event. So that tells me, like, everything's good to go. And that's one thing that we kind of had a problem with at first, or at least I did when I was doing Cordova stuff, is I never knew when this thing was ready to go. And now you do. You've got this nice little point. So the next thing is we have some states. So you have all these different states of your app. So we have nested states. Like, who here's used the UI router before? Anybody? Do you like it? Yeah? Well, we use it as well. So what you can do is you can, for those that don't know, because half the room didn't raise their hand, is you can go and say these different states. So I've got a tab state, and anytime I'm on tab, I'm going to use this tab templates. It's going to have just some tabs at the bottom. But between those three tabs, I've got different states. One of them is the dashboard tab, one of them is the friends tab, and one of them is the friend detail tab. So as you drill down, you have these nested states. So it's nice. You see a controller, what controller it's going to use, what HTML template it's going to use. Folks, it's just Angular and JavaScript. Like, it's awesome. You don't have to go learn, the UI kit navigation controller that has a delegate to whatever. You don't have to learn that stuff, which I thought was pretty awesome before I started. So, cheers to the team for making this all happen. But then a service, there's nothing fancy to that. It's just same service you're used to building. You want to have something in your app that collects data for you or sends something off somewhere else. It's just another Angular service you've already written 500 times. Now you just plug it in from your app. Let's say you had a previous web app that you want to reuse code. Guess what, folks? You can reuse code, too. I thought that was pretty awesome. Moving on a little more. Simple controller just to show some of these fancy controls that we have, or these services. So one is that action sheet. So like you tap on something, the action sheet from the bottom slides up. Like, you've used that before. Angular provides also an action sheet for you. And it's really, really easy to use, too. So all you do is just simply, you say show. You pass in some buttons here. Like, what do you want this to say? Share this, whatever. And then you've got styles for deleting it, if you want to do that, like a different color, like the red. And then you got little click handlers for them. So all in line, you've got everything provided, all in Angular, to do something that's very mobile-like. So on Android, it'll show the Android action sheet, and on iOS, it'll show the iOS version. As a developer, that's pretty powerful. You just rely on this service, call show, and then it'll show up. So just quick show. Any questions so far? This is for you. So if there's anything I haven't covered, clarified, any questions so far? Good? Okay. That's either a good thing or a bad thing. I never know. So there's a little more to Ionic. We provide you all of this, but as I was saying, our core purpose is making developer lives easier. And so one way we do that is, or one way I do it, is I look at problems that I have when I was developing Ionic apps. Or even our GitHub issues people post, and I have this problem, I think, wow, that's a really hard problem. I talk with a few team members, and then we're all riled up. We're like, yeah, let's crush this. Let's just make this the most awesome thing ever. So starting off with Ionic is we've got this command line tools that many of you, I'm sure, have used. If you've used Ionic, you've probably interacted with this CLI. It's the way you create your apps. You serve them in your browser. You start your iOS app. You start your Android app. Like, this is the core tool that you'll use to pretty much interact with your Ionic app going, as of right now. It's a pretty handy tool. I'm pretty much the guy doing all the releases, and I release fairly often. Anytime we have issues, I like to address them as soon as possible because, again, we're making this for you guys. So if there's anything you ever want, please holler at me. I'm here for you guys. But going forward, I have a little special project I've been working on that I'm really excited about. Is I've got some friends that they're just not a friend of they're just not really a fan of them. Like, they don't like command line tools. It's boring to them. They don't remember all the names, commands, whatever. So a little something that Ben and I, one of the co-founders, have been working on is something we like to call Ionic Labs. It's a little UI that you can use to go through your app, change it, start the server, run the app for you. Going forward, it's going to do a lot more things, but as of like right now, it's alpha. And it's just kind of nice. You can say, I want the iOS version, the Android version. You can start a server, play with it. And this is where, my friends, it comes time to prayer, if you're that kind of faith person. So I'm going to try to show it off real quick. So if it bombs out, you can come yell at me. So here I've got my little NG Vegas app. I'm just going to show you real quick. Here's my app, right? I've got couple of updates. It's kind of small. Hold on, let's see. Anyways, you can start your server, run your iOS app. You can see it's somewhat launching here at the bottom. Things you can share. So as a real quick thing, I just want to just give a quick demo. So here's my app, NG Vegas app. I'm going to go and change some code. Done it behind the scenes. You guys just have to believe me here. So I'm just going to change it, and you can just watch it as it updates. So make a save. Oh no. Boom. So as I'm changing my code, it's updating here. That's pretty cool. So we talked about before, say you're doing some kind of consulting agency because you have to hire them because you can't do native apps. You send them out your app design. They come back a week later, hey, we finished it. But we already changed. We don't want to do that anymore. So what do? You send them back another specification and a couple $1,000s to go with it. What we provide, though, is tools where you get instant clarification. Is this what you wanted? Here you go. Maybe I didn't want this. Maybe I wanted some extra items on here. I've got control because I'm the developer. Well, you don't have that when you go off to consultancy. It's like, this is your baby, right? Like, keep your baby in your hands. That's kind of what we were thinking about with Ionic Labs, is like another tool. So here, I'm going to quickly go through my Android app. Boom, now I've got my Android app version, if you will, with the tabs at the top, because that's how Android is. And you can use it, and I can update it here, Boom. So as I'm coding, I'm seeing my changes in the app frame. Like, that's pretty cool. But to go even a step further, like, this is the fun part too, is I've got my iOS simulator here. Boop. Like the real native device, right? Check this out. Boom. As you can see, my simulator now is updating. That's pretty awesome. That's the device. If I take it a step further, I can plug in my phone and do the same thing on my phone. That's pretty awesome. You want to take it a step further? Your stakeholders, the guy who runs your company, he can download this Ionic View app, and he can log in with an account, and then you can go publish a build, and he can hit refresh and see those changes. Boom. That's power. So from a tooling perspective, we give you all the tools that you need to make you look really awesome. And I think that's really cool. I really honor that because I like looking awesome in front of people. Like, who doesn't, right? But anyways, going a step further. So some other things Ionic has really given us is the way to, with older Android devices, they have this old crappy Android browser. And since it's a hybrid app, like, you're running on a browser, so your browser is like your weakest point, right? That's your failure point. So one thing we did for Android was we bundle up Chromium through a project called Crosswalk, and we plop that in there. So now you can use Android or Chromium 42 on your Android 4.2, 4.1 device. Like, that's pretty awesome. So another question is, how do you get native functionality from your phone? There's a project out there called NG Cordova, and it will give you things that you can access on your native device, like Touch ID, some OAuth stuff. I said the camera before, your contacts. And those are all done with Cordova. And Cordova just gives you like a callback that you go with. And we all know we all love callbacks. So NG Cordova came out to give promises that wrap around all these plugins. And that was, I thought, was pretty awesome. It was from a guy out of Italy, Paolo. Really cool guy. So another thing Ionic we were really focusing on is giving other things that help developers out. So say you want to do push notifications for your app. You got to go get that APNS thing set up. You've got to get your server going. You've got to then push out those notifications yourself. It's kind of a task. So one thing Ionic is how do we address that and make that easier for developers? And that's where this whole platform, Ionic IO, came from, where we're going to give analytics, push stuff, all those things that you'd think of after you build the app. That's what we're giving you now. So another way to kind of solve that problem. So push notifications. It'll be easy as using an Ionic push service that you just say push APN or push GCM, whatever. boom, you've got that through your app now natively. Like, as you can see, it comes on the device, boom. So I talked a little bit about the Ionic View app. That's a way for your stakeholders or whoever to go and download that Ionic app that you just built. So, for example, let's say you're a CEO. He'd download this app, and he'd just go and type his code in, and then he would just see that the app that you just built and pushed. Like, that's pretty powerful. Try doing that with like TestFlight or some other native thing where you've got to go push it 5 different channels and get your certification set up and your privacy and That's not what I want to do. I want to build apps. So it's just another tool here to help you get that to your users. Also pushing this drag and drop thing called Creator. You can go and just drag your components on, build your app. Again, it's an easy way for somebody who's not great at code and all that to give you what they want. Let's say your designer can just build this form real quick. You can export it and now start your app out, boom, with all these controls on there. And you just got to wire up the code. That's pretty awesome. But one thing we're really proud of at Ionic is more than anything is our community. It's people that have reached out to us and have helped given feedback, things like that. We even do a lot of outreach stuff. Our forum's really popular. Like if you go post a question, you'll get an answer. If you come and post on my GitHub issue, I'll find you. I'll find you. I'm just kidding. I'm not that violent. But our outreach has been awesome. We've gotten over now 16,000 stars on GitHub. We're one of the top repos. But it's not to say it's not without our users. So it's people like you. So give yourself a pat on the back if you've used this already. But we're going to be releasing 1.0 next Monday. So you didn't hear that from me. A lot of people were barking at us because we've been in beta for a long time, but it's coming, folks. Like, the Prophet has been released. So you're probably wondering, right? Angular 2. We get that question quite a bit. So yes, Angular 2 is what we're going to build Ionic 2 on, and we've been building it. And I know you kind of wanted more of Angular 2. We don't have enough to show off yet. Womp, womp, womp. But we met with some of the core team, and they're working with us to build Angular 2. So Max and Adam are actively working on Angular 2 with them, with Ionic 2. And I talked with one of their developers, Igor, and he was asking about, how does our CLI work, and what would an Angular CLI work? So talking with him, hopefully will provide a lot of feedback for them, but also know that Ionic will be supported through their CLI. So that's kind of a cool thing, too. So you can kind of think of like these superpowers. Adam gave a talk at NGConf where he called them superpowers for app development. So you can kind of think of like Ionic v2 is riding on the thing of Angular v2 and being awesome. So I'd like to think that. So again, what's next? Ionic 2. I don't have a lot to show, so I was told not to. But we're going to do more component modularity, which means it can be easier to make your components work together. One thing that I'm going to be tasked on is scaffolding apps. So if you ever use like Rails or something like that, you just want to say, give me a new controller, give me a new service, scaffold out an app for me. So that's something I'll be doing with. We've got some animations coming down and some web workers and multi-threading stuff. And what I demoed Ionic Labs, hopefully you guys will like and use. But that being said, I don't have much else for you. I'll be in the talking lab, and I hope you guys use Ionic because it'll make your life easier. And if not, you can yell at me at GitHub issues anytime you want. Thanks, guys.